time permitting, I had a reflection about security, and that has to do with the notion of the sandbox. And with JavaScript, there's a notion that the JavaScript in an HTML document that's being interpreted and executed by the web browser is safe in some respect, and it's safe to the extent that that JavaScript is forced to execute in a sandbox. And we don't have that in tech, but it occurs to me that the people who are working in this domain of JavaScript and other such domains have created a knowledge base about this sort of thing. And I know that there is this single parameter in tech that you can turn on and off that is supposed to allow it to, how to say this, allow us to have confidence that the tech engine is not going to do any mischief. But we could go further and somehow establish something that would allow, for instance, it would allow the tech file to write files into the same directory as the source document, but no other, and sort of make a sandbox in that way. I'm just wondering the degree to which people are thinking about these issues and trying to implement them.
We're getting on to topics that belong to next week, which is fine because we're at the end of this week, so it's really timely. Quite by chance, next week I'm going to talk about Snap, which is a package manager used by Ubuntu and other Linux systems. And a Snap package is something a bit like an ISO that gets mounted. It's a read-only file system. And it also comes with an environment that provides a certain amount of sandboxing for the running of the package. If you look up Snap on Wikipedia, which is what I did, you'll find that it has a limited, it provides some solution to some advances in terms of security, but it's sort of limited and not ideal. It's an improvement, but it's not the end of the road. But the idea that I like about Snap is that you have a read-only file system that contains the resources. And it's based on what's called SquashFS, which is a compressed file system that's used for things like routers and so forth. It's a sort of compressed read-only file system that works very well in that sort of context. So that's the first thing, and that's certainly a topic for next week. It was how can we, so to speak, snapify Tech Live without losing any of the things that we like and love. The next thing is that in some sense now, because of dint of all the hard work that's been done, the safest way to download a piece of software and run it is for it to be something that's a piece of JavaScript that runs in your web browser. And e-commerce depends upon that being safe. It depends upon the safety of the web browser. And I don't think that there's any more likelihood of bugs in one environment rather than the other. But the focus of resources on making the web browser safe and secure, and the fact that bounties are provided and all that sort of stuff makes an enormous difference. Of course, in in certain environments, you will disable JavaScript if you have a web browser at all. But most people are more comfortable in allowing JavaScript to run on a web browser than they are downloading and installing software from a security point of view. For what it's worth, you can get systems that, so to speak, second-hand the web browser. So they run a web browser in a separate machine, and it translates what's happening there so that your own machine doesn't get infected. A virtual machine will get infected. But having said all that, the statement you made regarding JavaScript having something nice, and it would be nice to have that with tech, and that is a sandboxing. Well, tech already runs in the browser. It doesn't run particularly well, but it runs well enough for us to have hope for the next that in the next 5 or 10 years it will run well enough. And if we go away from LaTeX and take the view that the purpose of tech is not to do PageMaker, which is a separate problem, and tech never did it very well because it was confined to one page and a bit at a time. Tech could only hold so much at a time, and its algorithms only hold so much at a time, really. But if tech is running one paragraph at a time and not restarting LaTeX for every new paragraph, the existing implementations of tech in the web browser will give satisfactory performance. So there will come a time in the next 20 years, I suspect, where tech or tech-like algorithms will be used in the web browser to allow on-the-fly typesetting. And Tech Live, the relevant part of Tech Live, will be downloaded on demand into the web browser. So you'll go to the URL and there it will go. There's a big schism between the people. When I say big schism, there's a large gap between the people who are developing Tech Live and the people who are doing the LLVM and tech and so forth in the web browser. And there's a whole bunch of stuff about what's called WebAssembly, which is a very important technology. I discovered that Fastly, have you heard of Fastly? You might have heard of them recently. They were responsible for the big outage of the internet because they provide edge services for caching, and a configuration change caused the collapse of their service. And so all sorts of things, including the BBC and the Guardian and the New York Times and various other things, Reddit disappeared because Fastly went down. So they are very heavily involved in WebAssembly because they see it as a programming language that solves many of their problems. And it allows you to write software that runs in the web browser and in the secure context of the web browser with a performance that's quite close to native code. So I see that as something that will happen in the next 30 years, that you will be able to download Tech Live, you'll be able to download a document and that parts of Tech Live that are needed to run it into your web browser and run it in your web browser. That will be the installation process. And when I say Tech Live, I mean, I will use a trick resorted to by Grace Hopper, who said that she didn't know what programming language would be used in 50 years' time, but she did know that it would be called Fortran. So in 20 years' time, I hope it will be Tech Live that provides the resources that go to the web browser. Although I don't know what form Tech Live will take, I just sort of know it will be the successor organization, so to speak. But that's talking about implementation, and it's taking a very long view in the history into the future. it's very easy to predict the future because nobody will know if you're right and nobody will know if you're wrong. Oh, Philip, Fortran programmer can write Fortran in any language. I saw a tremendous signature once, which where somebody said he used to be a Fortran programmer and he sort of managed to break all those habits and so forth. But there was this rule about comments and column 80 or something, and it was just
in the old days, yes.
yeah. I actually written something in Fortran. It didn't run. I wrote it on a punch tape terminal and sent it to the local technical college who had a computer that ran Fortran, but it didn't compile, or I didn't get any output. And I was only a sixth former, I was in my final year at high school. But that was my introduction to computer programming. Well, it was very advanced. The best thing was that the tape machine had the capability of reproducing a tape. It's quite useful because tapes wear out. And so if you've got a program written on tape, it's a good idea to repunch it from time to time. Anyway, they discovered that it wasn't fussy about its input, and so they punched by hand a sort of piece of tape that said "Merry Christmas," and then they get long streams of tape coming out that said "Merry Christmas, Merry Christmas, Merry Christmas," and that got more attention than the operation of the computer. Nowadays, people don't use computers; they use mobile phones, and they don't realise that they're computers.
So, Jonathan, I'd just like to reflect on some of the things you were talking about. When you talked about your vision of tech running in the web browser, my thoughts immediately went to WebAssembly.
Yeah. That's what Fastly are involved in, WebAssembly. And it's not my vision, or it's something I'm aware of, but other people are building these things now. These things have already been built. They just don't run very well. And it's not me that's doing it, it's other people.
Yeah, I'm picking up on this thread yet again. So I put a few links into the chat channel to sort of have a record of what I heard you saying.
Sorry, keep going, Arthur, if you've got more, please. I interrupted you with my determination.
Well, the thought that was crossing my mind was that what you might be referring to is a vision in which a person would be sitting in front of their computer operating a web browser, looking at a web page, and perhaps doing document creation or editing with some sort of tech engine buried deeply inside the safe environment, let's just call it safe environment, provided by the web browser. And at that point, it occurs to me that since what people are accustomed to in terms of web documents is that they have a visual representation of the document, they're not looking at the coded view. And if somebody's actually doing document creation or maintenance through that sort of user experience, then we're getting closer to what I think Lamport was talking about. He was trying to inspire us to envision. And we open the door to even more people to do essentially to be content creators. And that's been the big revolution in computer usage